So good morning and welcome to our Protiviti and Robert Half Collaboration Forum. My name is Paul Middleton and I'm joined here today by my colleagues from Protiviti and our sister company Robert Half. This is our weekly collaboration forum and this is our fifth and final series that will take us to the end of English lockdown in a couple of weeks' time, all things being well. And it's great to see some familiar faces here and some new faces alike. Since March of last year, our weekly forum has been aiming to invigorate, challenge and inspire us all to be bold and to look beyond our computer screens, stand up and think differently, as well as to bring optimism in what for so many has been a time of disruption, uncertainty and often change. Over the months, our forum has become a place for today's business leaders and our leaders of tomorrow to talk to each other, learn from each other, challenge each other and gain confidence from each other's perspectives and experiences. And that aim is the same today as it's always been. This is your forum. It's not a closed forum, you're not muted, it's pretty informal. And as ever, I urge you all to get involved and to make your voice heard, or at least put your comments in the chat. A thread that's run through all of our forums is that now is the time to think differently and to be actioning both those big and small ideas. Put differently, we believe at Protiviti and Robert Half that if we don't proactively drive change during this continued period of disruption, we run the risk of rapidly becoming irrelevant. But there's also another danger now, a danger that's lurking for us all at a tipping point that we're rapidly approaching. And that is that as we begin to unlock and we spend more time face to face with our colleagues in our office and we move out of our home offices and we dust off our desk, that danger is that we sleepwalk back into our old working habits and we leave behind this COVID mindset that we've developed over the last few months. A mindset that's given us a newfound ability to drive change at a rate that we thought previously impossible and to achieve things we were told that could not be done. In other words, over the last 13 months, we have successfully broken an office-based 9-to-5 working pattern that's been with us for centuries. And our challenge to all of you in this forum is to not march backwards and fall into those old habits and lose everything we've achieved. Because if we do, we can be sure that others won't and will simply fall behind. Instead, our ask to you is to be bold and imagine what the future can be and how we and you can grasp it. And that's exactly what we've been doing in this forum and will keep doing. We've already looked at the future of culture, the future of healthcare, the future of the economy, the future of social justice, inclusion, the future of ESG, and many more. And the coming 2 weeks, we'll be looking at the future of technology in our cities and society, as well as wrapping up with the future of the office and the future of back to work and digging into how you can shape that future to build on what we've achieved and not sleepwalk back into the past. This week, we'll be talking about the future of retail, an industry that's seen enormous disruption with high-profile winners and high-profile losers over the last 14 months. And it's an industry that affects us all. And as we'll explore, so many of the current imperatives facing the retail world are relevant to all industries, hopefully to your business. Like most weeks, we've tried to take on the big topics here, the big topics that are important to you. We're not going to be able to cover every aspect of retail in 1 hour. It's a huge topic, but we'll be taking bite-sized chunks. But most importantly, go in the direction that you, our attendees, take us. So the more you get involved, the more relevant it will be to you. To help us run the session today, I'm delighted to welcome our 2 panelists. First, I'd like to introduce John White, who is Finance Director for Retail at Pets at Home. As many of you know, Pets at Home is the UK's largest pet supply retailer, providing pet owners with everything they need to look after their pets, with more than 450 stores and 600 employees. The company's listed on the London Stock Exchange and has an annual turnover of well over £1 billion. John joined Pets at Home in 2014, having previously been head of financial accounting at Manchester Airport Group, and before that as an auditor with KPMG. And we're delighted that he can join us today. Next, I'm very pleased to introduce Daniel Bobroff. Daniel is the founder of Coded Futures, a creative technology advisory firm focused on the future of retail. He was also the founder of ASOS Venture, part of the ASOS global fashion destination for 20-somethings, and one of the leading first generation of fashion e-commerce businesses. Daniel spent over 2 decades as an innovator, entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and is today a leading voice in the world of retail and fashion technology. So you're in very good hands today, and more so than ever, you're more than welcome to bring your furry friends, your dogs, your cats, whatever, to this, and to I'm sure John will be more than welcome, more than happy to see them. So I'm delighted that both Daniel and John can join us. And Daniel, if I may come to you first of all, just to kick us off, Daniel, what has been the big change that you've seen in the retail world during the pandemic, and what are both the key challenges and opportunities the retail industry now faces, do you think?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that, Paul, and good morning, everyone. And I send my best wishes to everyone, and I hope everyone is well and keeping sort of fit through these difficult times, and maybe feeling a little bit more optimistic, as I think many of us are. Please God, Boris will open us up in a week or so. I think that during this overall period, we've taken a degree of comfort during those darkest days from history, and we looked back at what happened 100 years ago with the last pandemic, and we sort of had an understanding of perhaps what we were letting ourselves in for. But there was something else that took place about 100 years ago, and that was, of course, the Russian Revolution. And during that time, a young man by the name of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin made the famous quote, which was that there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. And I think that if anything, for retail during this last 12 months, we've experienced that. We've experienced weeks when decades have been happening. And it's changed our outlook quite fundamentally, I believe, towards technology, and for the good, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to try and unpack that in the hour that follows. And the reason I say for the good is that ever since my sort of time at ASOS 2013 and beyond, I've been taking to the stage to argue for a different approach, a different relationship with technology. Almost the point at which we've been dancing with it, we've got engaged to technology, but now it's time to get married. So I think that that's hopefully the theme that I'm going to try to explore this morning.
Fantastic. Daniel, thank you very much for that. John, could I start with you then as well? Just maybe if you can give us some insight into what have been some of the biggest challenges and changes at Pets at Home over the last 14 months, and where you now see both the opportunity and challenge for Pets at Home.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And good morning, everybody. And a particularly warm welcome to Guinness, who I think is one of our four-legged attendees today. So morning all, and echo the comments about feeling safe and well. I also really like the Daniel's quote about there are weeks when decades happen, because it certainly felt like that over the last 14 months. And I'm sure we at Pets at Home are not alone in the retail space of experiencing effectively a roller coaster. So at the start of the pandemic and the lockdown actually coincided with the start of our financial year, and we have just recently reported our results for that year to the city, and I think we've described it, and it's really fair to say that it was a year like no other. So for Pets at Home, we were incredibly fortunate to be designated as an essential retailer. The government recognised pet care was an essential industry, and whilst we had to reduce and restrict some of the services we offer, we were able to remain open and to trade. And whilst this was reassuring for our customers, our colleagues and our shareholders, it meant we were met with a series of immediate challenges. So those challenges primarily initially focused on how do we keep our colleagues and our customers safe? How do we maintain supply chain under increasing pressure and stress? How do we care for the pets that are both in our stores and in our supply chain? Because one of the services we restricted was actually the sale of pets. And with my financial hat on, how do we preserve liquidity, and how do we shore up our balance sheet and our financial resilience to weather what lay ahead? Now, as with many businesses, we saw a huge demand in those early days online. We effectively saw 2 years worth of growth in online overnight. And our customers really sought to secure product online rather than going in store, putting a huge amount of pressure on our organisation. I described it as a bit of a roller coaster, and this point of crisis probably only lasted for a few weeks, although it did feel like decades. Yeah. It was short-lived and was very quickly replaced with a new normal in terms of our trading patterns, one that maintained that greater online penetration. But it became quite clear early on that there were two new dynamics that impacted our market. Firstly, the role that pets play in people's lives has never been more important. Pets are a source of companionship, of joy, distraction, frankly, and they help actually bind families together. So we saw strong demand. We saw massive spikes in our puppy and kitten club. In fact, we estimate that the market has actually grown by 8%. The number of pets in the UK has grown by 8% over the last 12 months. And we have more people who are working at home, as we all are, and are able now to make the commitment to look after and care for another member of the family. We also saw a drive in our accessories business, supported by the nesting phenomenon that a lot of other home furnishing retailers would have seen. And particularly for those people that weren't furloughed and continue to work at home, there were limited other opportunities to spend your money with the closure of the leisure facility. So our full year results speak for themselves. We published them last week. Our second half, we grew at 12.5%. We delivered record sales in the retail space. And if you'd said that to me 14 months ago, I genuinely wouldn't have believed you. Such is the rate of change. So comparing where we are now to where we were 14 months ago, I'd make the following observations. So we've got a bigger overall market to address, which is fantastic for us. We've got a broader range of customer fulfillment options that we've had to bring to the table in rapid time over those early weeks and months of the lockdown. We've got a greater held confidence in our own agility, the innovation and pragmatism of the organisation that's been really tested. And actually an even bigger degree of pride in our colleagues and the passion they show to do the right thing for the nation's pets. So in terms of opportunities that we see that there are whole sectors of the population now who are more comfortable with online shopping. So previously the greyhound would have been more traditionally wedded to bricks and mortar. Those people are now comfortable shopping online. And an accelerated premiumization of pet products and pet care. Challenges for us specifically, that market growth makes the sector very, very attractive. So there are new entrants coming into the market. And whilst we have a defensible position, there are people that want to nibble away at various parts of our ecostructure. We need to make sure that we have compelling customer journeys, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And frankly, we haven't seen what the new base is yet because not everything has opened up.
John, thank you for that. You've covered a lot of ground there and covered some key changes in consumer trends. Daniel, I just wonder if you might just build on that, and just as you look across the wider market, and not just the fashion market, but the wider retail market as a whole, what do you see as the key changes to consumer trends over the last 12, 14 months?
Yeah, and I think John's sort of piece there was fascinating because it had so much in it. I mean, one of the things that immediately resonated with me was the different role that pets are playing in our lives. Suddenly the understanding of what even a pet is changed. For me, it meant I had to go exercise every day because I had to take these animals out to do their walk around the park, and that was my only source of exercise, and so those walks got longer and more pleasurable for me. So, I think that the way that retailers are seeing their role in the community has dramatically changed. And whether you're talking about pets or whether you're talking about fashion, the argument that we've been making for years that you're now no longer in a sort of a vertical position where you sort of preach from up on high and your customers just happily turn up in your stores each day, that's gone. That is gone. You are now horizontal. You are now part of that community, and it's about how you contribute to that community. And John also touched on that when he said how proud he was of his staff and the efforts that they had gone to for their customers. Again, I think we've seen good actors and bad actors in retail in terms of just their willingness to be, decent, just their willingness to put being kind above of being profitable for that period of time. I think the other thing that John said is that we don't yet know. So I would sort of couch anything that we're going to say in the fact that, we don't have a crystal ball and we aren't really yet at a position of sort of stability with the stores really just having recently opened up. But I would say there are a few trends. I mean, one of the ones that's obvious was the death of cash. I think that had been sort of coming for some time, but was rapidly accelerated. I can't remember the last time I went and used a £5 or £10 note. Everything is now through digital. And John also mentioned, I think, that a whole swathe of consumers who typically would not use online in the past, now do, and have been almost sort of trained in that sort of habit. There are a few interesting stats that sort of help us to understand the winners and the losers over this period. The fact that you look at someone like my old employer, ASOS, their profits went up 24% in that period. Whereas, you look at the fact that overall 83,000 retail jobs were lost in that same period. Amazon doubled their profits in 3 months to March. Meanwhile, John Lewis announces the closure of stores. There are these kind of clear sort of, and we already knew that there were companies out there that had grasped the technology challenge some years ago and had made significant progress, and none better so than Amazon. But even my old friends at ASOS, in 2013-14, really had to ask themselves some difficult questions when, for example, the website crashed over Black Friday. And the IT director got fired, and everybody blamed, all the IT guys for, making a mistake. But we had to sort of come to terms with the fact that, no, there was a need to invest more heavily in digital. There was a need to understand the role that digital was going to play. And they'd been on that journey from 2014-15. So come 2020, they're kind of ready. Whereas others, and you could put Philip Green's enterprise into this bucket, we're not ready at all. So I think that from that perspective, you ask about sort of trends, habits, certainly that vast swathe of customers that are now familiar and comfortable with online purchases, with, for example, 56% claiming that their spending habits have changed fundamentally over this period, and 43% saying that they plan to do more shopping for clothing online rather than going into stores. That was amongst 7,000 consumers that were asked. So, clearly there are significant shifts. Whether they will be sustained is a big sort of question. And I think also one of the things we're going to touch on in terms of the future of the high street.
Absolutely. You've mentioned a number of themes there, Danny, like the digitization, how certain businesses haven't managed to reinvent themselves. Maybe let's just dig into that as a theme. And Janet, I saw your question come through on the support for the stores. We'll come back to that in a moment. But John, for so many businesses, their bricks and mortar presence have proved a financial millstone, both before the pandemic and during it. And arguably that very presence of their bricks and mortar business has challenged the ability of some big brands, as Daniel's just said, to reinvent themselves and adequately change to meet the disruption. What role will the physical bricks and mortar shops play in your future at Pets at Home?
It's a really good question, and actually I think the answer to these and the perception of these can actually be quite cyclical. So a few years ago, I think any retailer with a large bricks and mortar presence, it was viewed as a financial burden, a millstone. Actually, I think stepping back a bit and just picking up on something that Daniel commented on as well, I think what COVID has done has exposed those businesses that had a flawed or a business strategy that was anchored in the past. And prior to COVID, we'd embarked on a transformation journey about how we integrate fully our digital and our physical space. And whilst we didn't want the pandemic to happen, and if it was ever going to happen, we probably could have done with another 12 months to really sort of get further down that transformation journey. The thinking and the activity that we'd launched as part of that stood us in very good stead over the last 14 months. So for Pets at Home, having a large bricks and mortar estate is actually a huge asset to us. And I think if we had just been a pure play, and we've seen that with some of our pet sector competitors that are just online, they struggled to react overnight. I think we saw that with some of the food retailers as well, in that if you're purely online, it takes time and effort to put on additional capacity. And depending on where you are in your capital investment cycle, you either have a latent capacity ready to go or you don't. Having a bricks and mortar estate, and for us, we've got 450 plus stores, they can effectively become 450 for order fulfillment points. And what that does is allows us to continue to not only serve our existing customers, but take on more customers that pure plays couldn't necessarily do. And was it the most profitable way for us to fulfill those orders? No, but actually we've got that customer, we've got the opportunity to showcase everything that we can do, and that will stand us in good stead going forward. Yeah. Prior to the pandemic, we had very few stores that were actually loss-making, and we have services that we offer in our portfolio that at the moment can't be delivered online. It is very difficult to groom a dog through an app. It's very difficult to administer vaccinations through a desktop computer. So we see the physical presence as a central pillar to our strategy. What they represent is a place for customers to come and get answers, help and advice, deliver those physical services and fulfill stock. So our pet care centres, we are home to about 12,000 experts. Most of those colleagues are fanatical pet owners, and they can engage with our customers on a very deep level and share their real life experiences to help our customers look after their pets in the best way that they can. So we can't deliver our strategy without a big store estate. And I think the real trick that we're investing in is how we bring the great elements of the store experience, and I do say experience, into people's homes with digital capability. And that's one of the key areas we're focusing on at Pets.
So many ideas, John, with two pets. Sorry, carry on, Paul.
No, absolutely, Daniel. Please continue.
Yeah, I think, again, John picks on and underlines two vital themes. The first one is the move towards experience. And I would argue for two types of experience, which retail is going to need to master. You see, for me, and my very first job was working in a shop. So, in a sports shop, busy sports shop. In fact, I came to learn the busier it was, the better, the more I enjoyed it, because there's nothing worse than standing in a store where there's no customers. You go into retail because you love to serve the public. You love that interaction. And it's better if you're an expert. And clearly, if you go into a Pets at Home store, they are experts. They are passionate about it. So it is beholden now, I think, upon retailers to empower those resources, those expensive, valuable resources they have in their people. And we call that supersuiting. We call that using technology, putting the technology in their hands that allows them to offer the sort of range of customer experience that we think is necessary today. And that goes way beyond just having the ability to sort of check out there and then without having to stand in a queue and go to something called a till, which is about 100 years old, and we should have got rid of it a long time ago. So it's vastly beyond that, and it resonated with me because recently I was working for a very auspicious, uber high-end American department store. You probably can guess, who have the same kind of dynamic. They have a significant retail estate, but department stores, we can talk about Debenhams, are challenged in this new world. But they have these incredibly talented store associates who are absolute experts in so many different areas. And it's about how can you bring that asset to the fore. The other thing that John mentioned was the whole question around experience. As I said, I would argue for two types: the physical experience in the store, but also the digital experience. I'm not satisfied with the state of e-commerce 2020. I find it like a catalogue. I don't feel that I go much beyond just looking at a big list of, okay, it might be a pretty list with some photos and maybe even a bit of content if I'm lucky. But there's not much in the way of interaction for me. There's not much in the way of experience. And I use the sort of high watermark as video games, computer games, which have set for a long time what experience means in a digital sense. And I was fortunate enough to work in that industry and build many of those games, many of which got to high chart positions for about 20 years. So coming to retail, it was a bit of a shock. You know, here is an industry based on essentially theatre, and it's not using the same techniques and technologies that are already out there and have been out there for years. Just the last thing I'd say on that, many of you will see early efforts at 3D by retailers, particularly in fashion. I mean, come on, guys, they suck. You know, they can be so much better. Have a look at Call of Duty. Have a look at some of the latest games, you know, that are coming out in terms of the level of sophistication with their graphics. Why are we not at that level now?
Absolutely, Daniel. You paint an interesting picture of this, or you both do actually, in terms of the dichotomy between the customer service and the customer experience, John, that you're highlighting, that people get in store, but also the importance of that online presence and the ability, and I guess the opportunity there for that online presence to develop in sophistication to, as you say, Daniel, the gaming industry standards. John, from your perspective, where does that opportunity lie then for someone like Pets, where you're bringing together people into your shops, and they can not only buy dog food, but there's the vet there, there's the groomer. Where does that opportunity for technology innovation lie for Pets at Home to differentiate yourself?
Yeah, a really good question, and one we're grappling with and addressing actually as part of the organisation. I suspect Pets isn't atypical in that its e-com infrastructure has developed piecemeal over time, and for our customers actually to engage with us digitally currently is a bit of a challenge. We don't have things like simple sign-on, all those sort of things. So if you want to book a vet appointment, you can find the space to the website, but you need to sign in. And then if you want to book a grooming appointment, you have to go and find another part of the website in a slightly different format. So it's not a very pleasant experience. What we've done is we've stood back from all of this and thought, right, to really truly digitize our business and help deliver a truly omni-channel experience to our customers, where they can engage both digitally and physically with us to get what they need to look after their pets. We need to be really clear on the journeys our customers are likely to take with their pets and how we can help them along their way. So our customers are pet parents, so their pets are born, they're literally toilet trained, they become teenagers, they destroy things, they eat slippers, they develop ailments, they've got all sorts of dietary requirements, they get ill, and sadly in time they will die. So customers want help in navigating these complex life journeys, and Pets at Home, with its retail offering and its services offering, are able to meet most of the needs that a pet owner might have. But we need to make sure that we can help our customers navigate that. So we've identified 25 life journeys effectively, of which there could be hundreds of different permutations. And we're using data insights. We are investing heavily in our technology platform and in our store training programs for our colleagues to link together a broad CRM program tailored to those 25 journeys, that's based on pet age, breed, and its known healthcare information to help our customers be the best pet care parents that they can be. I think understanding these journeys is more important than ever online, actually, because by necessity, by design, there will be some rigidity that's built into that process. Something that face-to-face conversations a customer can have with one of our colleagues in store can help them navigate it, and it's very difficult for the digital experience to replicate that. And that's why we've focused on these journeys and put them right at the centre of our digital transformation programme that we're calling Polestar. And we call it Polestar because effectively this is the focal point of all routes. It's a customer led focal point, and we're investing significantly in this space. But what we want to be able to do is also put that knowledge, that specific journey in the hands of the colleague. So no matter how a customer chooses to engage with us at Pets at Home, starts a transaction online, finish it in store, or vice versa, we can do that. We're also partnering with a company that will allow a customer who's browsing product on the web, to actually have a video conference with a knowledgeable colleague in the moment to help answer any questions and help them understand whether that product is right or not. So bringing some of that theatre that Daniel described, some of that theatre in the retail experience into people's front room or on the bus or wherever it is they're choosing to engage.
Yeah,
No,
because I think it's, Paul, I think it's the point that retail has been in love with the operational efficiency of technology for a very long time, but it has sort of dabbled and not really known where to go with the experiential piece. And that video connection, which was obviously massively accelerated by all of our use of video conferencing during the pandemic, is now a natural part of our shopping experience. We see no problem with actually connecting online with a store associate and actually posing some questions. In fact, we expect it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Daniel, do you think the pace of change we have seen over the last 14 months, when you look across the industry, do you think that will continue? Do you think there's even more imperative now to differentiate through the use of technology?
Yes, absolutely. I think that it was an interesting comment by Jim Cranmer of CNBC, who said retailers need to start to push harder and be more unconventional. A lot of retailers still think that people will just keep returning over and over again. And those days are kind of gone, because we now live in a world of sort of unlimited supply. We're always a couple of clicks away from a similar product, maybe even cheaper, or a different range of products. I think that it's now clear that there is a race that haves and have nots that I described. The way that ASOS and Pets at Home, by the sounds of things, have been pandemic winners. Just doesn't completely mask the fact there have been an awful lot of losers. And the gap is going to continue to widen, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting looking in the chat, a lot of, listening to you, a lot of people are making that connection between a lot of what you've been saying, John, in particular, around doing things right and doing things properly, around whether some of those winners and losers, Daniel, will be defined by how people and society perceive them doing the right thing, which kind of takes us on to those ESG considerations, something we've talked about a lot in this forum. But and it's not just environmental social governance, as I say, very often that's being seen to do the right thing. And I think Rupert was asking a question around, with a greater focus on online retailers in particular, how important, John, do you think that governance and ethics will be in looking at how these companies behave and the perception of that? And will customers be more likely to buy from businesses demonstrating these credentials, or will they just simply be putting price and value as the main driver, do you think?
I think we probably have different sectors of the population where what we do and how we do it have greater prominence. I think the important thing is whatever a retailer does and states in terms of its approach to ESG is that it's authentic and actually it can be backed up, because I think at that level customers will be making value judgments about the type of brands they want to associate themselves with, and it needs to be more than just paying lip service to it. And we at Pets at Home take this incredibly seriously. And just this week, we've published our second social responsibility report that sets out what we describe as our Better World Pledge. We've built that around 3 pillars. So 1, making a positive impact for all pets in the UK. 2, making a real positive impact for people. So that's both our own colleagues, but also customers, and how we help the broader social justice agenda. And thirdly is commitments around our contribution, the footprint we leave on the planet. Those are backed up by firm commitments that we've published and will hold ourselves to account for every year, so that our customers can see and believe what we're doing. And it's got focus and leadership from the board all the way through our group executive committee. I think increasingly retailers will be asked for a position on it. And as I say, I think it needs to be a credible, authentic position that are backed up by commitments.
Yeah, it's again an enormous topic, which I think one can look at as being exceptionally good for business, as well as just being a moral obligation that we have. I mean, you know, none of us want to leave the planet destroyed, you know, to our children. You know, it's just, however successful we are in business and life, we still have a legacy that we are all, each and every one of us, conscious of. And we see the signs of that, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, the huge swelling of kind of support for that, which rightly so, you know, came about almost overnight with that awful incident in the US, but was nevertheless a global phenomena. You know, the same is true with environmental concerns, and the one that is touching me on a regular basis is sustainability. And yet the technology exists for us to actually manage our supply chain far, far better, and it's called RFID. You know, we can put these little tags on our products, which allow us to trace them right the way through the supply chain, and even further, right the way back to the fields, if we like. And that transparency that we would then have about where things have gone, what they've done, the journeys they've taken, the carbon footprint they have, you know, we can be proud in sharing that with our customers. They want that level of transparency from us, and they will help guide the kinds of products and services that we offer in the future, because they may well reject certain types of products for not being sufficient enough. So it gives us efficiency within the supply chain. And if there's been any superpower during the last 12 months, surely it's been a single stock view. Surely it's been the ability to know where your stock is at any point in time. John just talked earlier about how literally overnight their retail estate started to perform almost a distribution center type role. You know, they were sending out from the stores. I think that's going to be an everyday occurrence going forward. I mean, I look at sort of Nordstrom in the US, who started to open Nordstrom locals in 2018, you know, dark stores, you know, dotted around the city that they didn't realize then, but would serve a huge purpose during the pandemic in terms of getting product to the customer in the shortest space of time. And that extends to what's going on in the last mile delivery space. So I think these two things are not mutually exclusive: profitability and business success, and, you know, the whole ESG debate.
No, absolutely, Daniel. And I know there's a few more comments on this. And actually, in a couple of weeks' time, just on that very subject you mentioned, Daniel, we'll have B Corp on this forum, who will talk to that even more, and you know, and look to give certifications around that. But I'd like just to build on that ESG theme a little further, because it isn't just about the customer service and the customer experience, but also very often and increasingly nowadays, it's around the full stakeholder. You know, it's looking at all stakeholders, and John in particular, sometimes it's looking at how companies treat their staff. And indeed, going back to a question Janet asked at the very start around just how you at Pets at Home have supported the stores and the central teams with this unprecedented level of disruption, because what we've seen very visibly over the last few months are, you know, is that staff have been very often very visible casualties to the pandemic due to cost cutting, or trying to achieve more with the same or fewer levels of staff. How at Pets at Home have you evolved your strategy to your people? Because, as I say, that increasingly is such a key window that people will look in and say, okay, that's how we're going to judge Pets at Home.
Yeah, really good question. And linking back to some of my earlier questions about expertise being at the heart of what we want to deliver in terms of pet care, we can't do that without our colleagues. So we've had for a number of years a robust and genuine set of values and behaviours, and that Better World pledge I described had people and our people as one of the central pillars to that. And we very quickly recognised, whilst we were designated as an essential retailer and could maintain our stores as being open and our distribution centres, what that meant was we had up to 10,000, 12,000 colleagues on the front line, effectively, which overnight, effectively, the workplace had become a significantly less safe place in which to work. So effectively, right at the start of the pandemic, we as a leadership team of the business took the decision that we would be true to our values and would go above and beyond what absolutely we needed to put physical safety and also emotional well-being of our colleagues front and center of everything that we did. And PPE was sourced immediately, screens were sourced immediately. We recognised it wasn't just a challenging work environment for our colleagues, but also everything else that was going at home. Maybe they had people they were caring for, maybe there were sickness worries, maybe there were financial pressures elsewhere in the home because other wages had been impacted. So we put together a very quick programme that focused on the physical, emotional and financial well-being of our colleagues that ran throughout. A really great example that I'm really proud of is that whilst we didn't take any government-backed furlough, we offered our own internal furlough system to help those colleagues that had caring or shielding impacts, and that was at full pay. So we took that worry, we put the money in so that our colleagues felt supported. We introduced a structured listening program so that all the senior management team of the business based in the support office, who would typically spend some time out in store in any given week, we buddied up. So each director in the business was buddied up with an area, and actually every store would receive a call every week. So actually, I think probably by the end of the by the summer, stores, particularly those that were further away from our central office, probably felt more connected to the support office and the leadership of the business than they ever had done. But it isn't just a response to the pandemic. It underpins our strategy going forward as well. So we are reviewing all of our training and CPD programs to make sure that the training is relevant and right. We are investing in wage rates so that colleagues can quickly earn a real living wage after they've completed their initial training program. We're investing in training our colleagues in our vet grooming space that need nearly 1,500 hours worth of training before they can groom a dog, as well as our graduate scheme in our vet program, which is a real area of pride for us as a business. So response and looking after our colleagues during the pandemic was absolutely vital. And I think actually you see through our engagement scores an increase in the respect for the steps the business has taken to keep them safe and looked after.
So again, John, thank you so much for the candor there. How do you see that then evolving? Do you see the same level of investment going forward, given the results you've seen that from that investment over the last 14 months, and as you say, the engagement stores, is that now something you as a business will pivot more towards and say we've got to keep doing this, even if we're out the woods from some perspectives, we're going to keep doing this?
Absolutely. We invest a lot in training our colleagues, and the more the retail sector moves away from a colleague just fulfilling an order and replenishing a shelf to a colleague adding value, the more we want and need to retain those colleagues who've invested time and effort in training up, because they're the ones that bring the theatre to life. They're the ones that help bring pet care to life for us. So not only do we want to make sure and we will ensure that we have a competitive remuneration strategy, but also a compelling development strategy that sits around all of our colleagues, no matter where in the organisation they sit.
Yeah.
Thank you. Daniel, do you see that? Sorry,
go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, Daniel, do you see that being the same across the rest of the industry there? Because when you've spoken so well about the advance in technology and efficiency, and is that going to threaten some more retail jobs and almost that high speed retailing? Will that detract from some of what John's just described there in your view?
Well, again, we can take this sort of glass half empty or half full approach to most of these topics. I like to take the glass half full approach. So from my point of view, there are a tremendous number of retail jobs that none of us would like to do. You know, they are boring, they are monotonous, they are repetitive, they are depressing. And they don't have to be, because, you know, we now have the ability to introduce automation into many of those processes through technology that can actually take away from, you know, I mean, just a stock count in a store, for example. How painful is that? You know, close the store down for 2 days, spend several £1,000s per store to have a group of people come in and manually count everything. You know, no, just wave a magic wand, have everything with an RFID tag, it's done in 20 minutes. I mean, but then go beyond that. So I believe that retail jobs can be repositioned, if you like, to serve the customer, because in everything we've said, it's all about putting the customer first. And if the store is our stage, then surely the you know, our colleagues are the actors. You know, they are the ones who interface with our clients, and if you look after them, then they will look after the business, I think was what Richard Branson once said. So I believe that it's beholden upon us to take away the drudgery and boredom and really low value stuff that we ask of our colleagues, replace that with automation technology as much as we can, and increasingly as we move into an era of IoT, that's going to be even more exciting, and reimagine those roles. And I don't believe that is a net minus. I think if anything, it's a net plus. You know, I think we end up with more retail jobs as a result, but we need to be prepared to take that next step.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, that's a fascinating view, and hopefully one that, you know, the retail industry is bold enough to grasp, and as you say, take that step. John, just a couple of reflections on just coming through in the chat in terms of what you said there, and Daniel, it'd be interesting to see your perspective on this as well. But, you know, with that increased online presence and automation, your business is shifting, and your risk profile is shifting. Factors like cyber risk, have they become kind of more important, and how are you looking to manage those?
Yeah, so cyber risk is a good one, because I can't tell you how many updates I've had pushed to the various devices I operate on to manage cyber risk over the last couple of months. It's yeah, I've got a post-it note here with all my passwords on, which I'm sure my CIO would shoot me for. Right? No, you're absolutely right, and the concentration of more and more of your output in a single centre, so a central DC, as your online penetration increases, is a risk, and is one we're very acutely aware of, actually. So we currently operate our multi-channel business out of 2 central fulfilment centres, and we are breaking ground on a new larger site. Where the intention is we'll consolidate those 2 sites into it. So actually, the board have been challenging us quite a lot. We've been challenging ourselves around, actually, you've just doubled down on your risk there. But back to my earlier point about having 450 other fulfillment centres, that is a real help to us in mitigating that risk. I think inevitably, businesses will become under increasing focus and attack from people that want to sort of get in and try and damage the digital infrastructure. That is also very much in our mind in that Polestar program I talk about, in terms of how we build in as much resilience as we can in those places. I think all organizations need to have an increasingly robust plan for effectively a disaster recovery, but also test it routinely to ensure that it works. That whether that's at a sort of a full-scale event or testing the edges of it, we will very routinely now have tests for cyber phishing and cyber attacks, and having done it several times myself, you are required to complete several online training modules if you open up an email that you shouldn't do when they've deliberately sent it to you as a test. So I'm becoming quite an expert on how to spot phishing emails, but okay. You know, it is front and center. And actually, you know, whether we were behind the curve in the past, but certainly we are now at least on what I believe we are on the curve with that. There's been a significant investment in our organisation in the last couple of years to bring us up to scratch, really.
Okay. All right. Very good. I'm just going to put in a few more questions coming from the chat. One that's come in, the B word. We haven't touched on that, but Daniel, quick reflections from you How's Brexit affected the retail business, the
Oh,
retail world so far, do you see?
yeah, everyone's forgotten about it, haven't they? I mean, unthinkable compared to where we were. No, it's hugely problematic in terms of, and we saw early signs of that in terms of the chaos at the border. I'm sure many of us have had sort of experienced that, and it continues to be, you know, a sort of amber going to red light if one listens to the news last night and today about, you know, the EU running out of patience. I struggle a little bit with it because I think, you know, it can just be a question of a bit of posturing from both sides. There's clearly a negotiation going on. And I think that, you know, both sides want to sort of demonstrate the pain that will be inflicted if you don't agree with their position. But so I think that we are not out the woods on that one. You know, I personally didn't vote for it. I'm very disappointed that we have it. But so I find, you know, I find the whole topic to be somewhat disturbing. Yeah, I think that we will, you know, these guys, we are in large part Europeans, aren't we? We look like them, we act like them, we behave like them, we do the same things as them. They're on our border, they're on our doorstep, and they buy huge amounts of our products and services. So, you know, we need to find a way through this mess, and it can't be the status quo as it is today.
Thank you, Daniel. And John, from your perspective, will Pets at Home be making changes in terms of how you run the things you stock in line with Brexit?
Or
because of Brexit?
As a UK retailer, we haven't been as impacted as some other retailers with the impact of Brexit. Northern Ireland is a challenge for us to work through, as it is for other retailers. We have 5% of our store estate based over there. The biggest challenge for us, actually, that Brexit posed and poses is the availability of vets, actually. So a significant proportion of the vets that work in our business, whether as locums or employed vets, or whether as partners in our joint venture partnership model, had come from the EU. And so the Brexit legislation around employment and business ownership poses a bit more of a challenge in how we continue to build a pipeline of vets to come and be partners with us.
All right, understood. Yeah, that isn't one I guess many people would focus on or perceive would be one of the biggest impacts. But that's very interesting to hear. Again, just picking up on something that in the chat. So I think in May we saw the highest retail sales, I think, since the start of the pandemic. That obviously places huge pressures on the supply chain. Daniel, quick reflections from you on how have attitudes and policies towards suppliers shifted during the pandemic, and how do you think this is going to evolve going forward?
That's a really good question, Paul, because initially, and I'm not sure again if it was to do with the sort of impending collapse of the Arcadia Group, but there was a lot of headlines around how poorly they were being treated. You know, how sort of orders were being cancelled on the hoof, you know, refusal to take deliveries that had been previously ordered, you know, all sorts of chaos stories. I think as we've gone forward, that has sort of settled. But I think really it's sort of the story of how we are interacting with suppliers is more a story of how we need to open our sort of our own borders, if you like, as retailers. I think that we've all become very used to working in a distributed fashion during this period. You know, we've all been sitting in our homes, you know, with our colleagues working through Zoom or Teams, you know, and okay, it's not, we all yearn to be back face to face, but we've managed to keep things going, and in some cases, you know, as John's been saying, you know, succeed very, very well. So I think this idea that we are in it together, you know, should continue to sort of be present. And that for me is about community again, but not just the community of our customers, the community of our suppliers, our technology providers. I don't believe anymore retail now looks at its in-house tech team and says, that's all I need. If I need any more tech people, I'll just hire them. I think they now, like, for example, in the question of cybersecurity, need to go and look externally, need to go and look at experts in the field. So I believe that it's a signpost towards a much more collaborative relationship, both with our customers as part of their community, but equally with our suppliers of goods, but equally of knowledge, technology, and other services.
Absolutely. I'm going to keep us going here just to cover some more ground. John, some difficult question here for you, or now you're fully warmed up. But question around kind of future business models. There's been a huge amount of disruption. Is there a need for a new retail business models in order that retailers can face the future with confidence? Kelvin, for example, is asking, is there a place for a shared physical space for online retailers, like a department store, but with multiple retailers and an online only delivery? Do you see models like that needing to evolve?
Yeah, I do actually, Paul. I think partnership and collaboration amongst retailers, I think, is a good opportunity, and one we're tentatively exploring. So, as an example, we have had a shop within a shop. So we have a Pets at Home store that we run and operate ourselves, but it's within a large Tesco Extra up in the northeast, and being able to share that footprint, but also take advantage of each other's footfall, I think is a really interesting opportunity to explore. Yeah. I think online marketplaces and sharing in that space is an interesting area for us to explore, and we're looking at that, and how we can, particularly when we have a new distribution centre that we will have on stream in a couple of years, which certainly in the early years will have latent capacity because it's a sort of 15-year play. How can we leverage that asset with other retailers to help share some of that cost? I think partnerships around the edges, I think, provide a really interesting opportunity that I think retailers should have an open mind in terms of how they explore.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, John. I think it's a bold new world. Daniel, quick thoughts on
that? I love this topic. It's one of my favourites, and I think one of the really interesting shifts there in terms of from online and this whole collaboration piece has been the growth of the platform business almost. And I think it is beholden upon retailers now to rethink their business models in many instances. I think the days of stack it high, sell it cheap are over. I think that, as we say, we want experience when we go into a store. We want a reason to go there, because otherwise, in many cases, it's just a whole lot easier to buy it online and have someone deliver it. But I think that the whole nature of the platform business, and when I say platform business, think Uber, think Airbnb, think businesses like that where you participate, you interact with the ultimate seller, if you like, whether it's you're looking for a place to get away, you're a traveler, and a host is going to offer you their property, but you two create the value together, and Airbnb sits on the sidelines and monetizes a bit of that added value. And they do it through a commission. Uber is the same. They're facilitating you getting from A to B, and a driver is going to pick you up and do that. But you two are the ones that interact. They just empower you. They enable you. And they do that through technology. And that's a very different approach to a marketplace, where the retailer just lists a load of products, usually in a great big long list, and you go on there and maybe something works. The platform business is more about empowerment, enablement, and your role amongst other tenants. And I think it's fascinating for retail.
Daniel, thank you so much for that. You've both of you with your crystal ball gazing there. I think you brought us to the top of the hour. So look, thank you ever so much. I think we could go on and on there. There's a lot of information there, and thank you so much for your candor and your insight there. It's really, really valuable. I'd really like to thank you both for attending, and thank all of our attendees for being here today. If you've liked what you've heard today and you want to get in contact with Daniel or John, please let us know at Protiviti and Robert Half. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. Hopefully I got to most of them, but our challenge to you as ever is to put this all into action. There's a video of this if you want to go over what you've heard. Please look on our website for that, and we can post that in the chat. Next week, we're looking at another massive theme, the future of technology on businesses, city and society, with one of the world's leading female technology entrepreneurs, Dr. Aisha Khanna. So until then, on behalf of my Protiviti and Robert Half team, just like again to thank you all for coming, extend my best wishes to you all. Stay safe, be bold, be kind to each other, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Daniel. Great session.